Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about how to use nominations to control your auction draft. There isn't much that you can control in your auction drafts, but there's one thing that you can control, and that is who you elect to nominate. Not enough conversation is around this topic, so Joe and I are here to discuss it. We're going to talk about 6 players that we think would be good players to nominate. There's for price checks, changing situations. So, Joe, who's the first guy that we think would be a good player to nominate early?
Yeah, first guy we'll go with here is running back James Cook, the Buffalo Bills. He's a guy that would be a good one. Just kind of get a feeler out there, price check, see how. Obviously, he had such a great year last year with the Bills offense. His current auction price with the ESPN price auction value cheat sheet here is at $24. It's kind of in that middle of the pack of running backs. So be interesting to see how people kind of where they value him, or if he's a guy that you're interested in as in your RB2. Better to kind of see what his value is versus waiting to where people could be also waiting on James Cook as well. But with these guys, kind of uncertain situations, we'll see what happens if the Bills end up giving him that contract extension. But I think a lot of people like Ray Davis too, and most people are expecting that touchdown regression to happen. So you might be able to get James Cook for a value.
Yeah, I mean, James Cook honestly kind of spooks me. I mean, if you look at over his 3 years in Buffalo, in his rookie year, he had 2 rushing touchdowns. In 2023, he had 2 rushing touchdowns.
Right.
Last season, he had 16. I mean, talk about an exponential climb. I don't think anybody, no matter who does projections out there, nobody projected James Cook to have 16 rushing touchdowns. Just didn't happen. And that just goes to show we can do the best we can to prognosticate as to what's going to happen. We don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody expected him to get 16 rushing touchdowns, Joe.
No, I mean, I expected him to get more than the 2 that he had been, but 16, I mean, nobody, like you said, nobody saw 16 touchdowns coming. And I believe he added more in the passing game too, so for an even more combined touchdown total there.
Well, he had 2 receiving touchdowns in 2024, 4 receiving touchdowns in 2023. So actually a little bit less. He actually wasn't as involved in the receiving game, believe it or not. But I think that just is because of the offensive coordinator change with Joe Brady just, heavily relying on the run. But I think Cook is a good one to put out there because I think for his price, do you think it's baked into his price? Like the uncertainty of him playing, because I feel like $24 is, and Chase Brown's 25, Kenneth Walker's 22. Like I kind of feel like, I mean, he's listed as RB13. He finished as the RB8 the year before that. He was the RB12. So I kind of feel like his price should be discounted a little bit, and it's not based off what's going on.
Well, I think it is discounted because, I mean, if they were looking to have him repeat or for him to even be even better, like he wouldn't be the RB13 and he'd be priced higher. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If you really want a guy though, like I do think, he is interesting for, I think a guy like Chase Brown, who's currently listed as $1 more. I mean, the buzz around him and the excitement for him he's going to end up being a lot more. So I think for a guy just below and James Cook, I mean, I do think you'll get a better value on him than people are going to pay for Chase Brown.
Next guy I'm going to be talking about here is wide receiver Tyreek Hill, the Miami Dolphins. And Joe, what do you do with this guy? I mean, he's honestly, of all the players in the player pool for your drafts, he might be the biggest wild card. I mean, obviously he had an interesting offseason, we'll put it. And then, coming back with the team, he had some comments that he basically was like, I don't want to be in Miami anymore. And even, Tua had to come out and say, look, this isn't just something we look over. We have to kind of repair the relationship. Now Tyreek Hill is saying like, oh, okay, now things are all good, yada, yada, yada. This Miami Dolphins team seems fractured to me. I think Mike McDaniel doesn't really have control of the locker room, to be honest with you. You've had different players. You've had Javon Holland come out on interviews saying, kind of pointing shots at Miami. Jalen Ramsey wanted to get out. It just, they can't get it right for whatever reason. So Tyreek Hill, a guy who, typically in this time of year, you're talking about a guy who's going for $50 plus. He's drafted in your first rounds and in your snake drafts. Well, right now he's wide receiver 12, going for $31, and he finished as the wide receiver 18 last year. Was below 1,000 yards receiving for the first time in a long time since 2019, and only 6 touchdowns, which was his worst since his rookie year. So, I mean, what do we do with the cheetah?
Yeah, I'd personally like to nominate him early and see if you can get him for a really good value because he's a risky player. I think people want to be risk averse, but depending on how you structure your roster, I think if you put some safe options on your team around Tyreek Hill, I think he could be worth the risk because there is a chance that, if Tua is able to stay healthy, he's able to stay healthy himself as, he's not getting any younger these days. But I think he still possesses that, potential and his high upside, even though it really comes at a high risk.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I think you're right. You could pad him a little bit that if he busts, if you had some safer options. He's the type of guy who right now you're getting him at a discount if he performs the way that we know Tyreek Hill typically performs.
Yeah, not too long ago. This is a guy that you pay, into the $50 for, if not high 40s. So the fact that he's, starting out at, $31 right now, it's interesting because what if he just does it, if he is able to kind of return to, being able to at least maybe not top 5 like he had been, but maybe he finishes in the top 10, and maybe there's a chance that you get him cheaper than the $30.
See, I think I'd rather have Waddle. I think they get Waddle for half the price. I think this might be the opportunity
Interesting.
for Waddle to kind of have the baton be passed to him.
Yeah, I think I want to take a shot at either one of those guys because somebody is going to be taking over the targets that Jonnu Smith left behind. And I know people are really excited about the passing volume Achan's going to get, without Jonnu Smith being there. But I think maybe with a full healthy Tua, maybe that dink and dunk style offense gets shredded and we get back to some of those deep shots with Tyreek Hill down the field. The next player we're going to go with is going to be quarterback Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think it'd be good to get this guy out there early. One, if you want him, but two, if you don't want him, there's a good chance that with his name value that people are still going to pay, the high dollar amounts for him because he's regarded as one of the top NFL quarterbacks. But just because you're a top NFL quarterback doesn't mean you're going to be also one of the top fantasy quarterbacks. And lately with the shift in the Kansas City Chiefs offense, them running the ball more, honestly, ever since Tyreek Hill hasn't been there, just the lack of the deep passes and honestly the way teams are playing defense now, taking those deep shots away. I know on the ESPN cheat sheet here, they're listed him as the QB6, and he's currently listed as $8. But I think there's still a chance you see people paying into the 20s, like the rest of the top 5 guys are on the sheet here.
Yeah, I think he typically is associated with those other guys: Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, and Josh Allen. Possibly for fantasy, maybe Allen, Jackson, and Daniels are on their own tier now with Hurts and Burrow in that second grouping. But Mahomes, like you said, is a huge name still. People, I think they have a hard time resisting, getting a guy like him. So I agree, nominating him early makes sense. What's the tie of the draft? Are people going to spend a lot for him, or are you going to get him for a discount?
Yeah, because he could be interesting to get him at a value because he is Patrick Mahomes, and we'll see what happens. Maybe things change up with the Chiefs offense a little bit. For Rashee Rice after his suspension, if he's healthy, we really haven't seen a lot of, now that Worthy's acclimated. Now we haven't really got the chance to see both of them on the field,
and they can't continue what they did last year. I think they're going to have to spice it up a little bit. I think this offense is going to look different.
Yeah, it definitely could. They really lacked explosive plays, and they need to fix that.
Well, next guy we're going to be talking about here is running back Ashton Jeanty of the Las Vegas Raiders. And I got to tell you, and this is something I always typically like to do, anytime whoever is the top rookie of coming into the draft class that for fantasy football, I think it's always a good idea to nominate them early and often. The reason for that is a lot of times you'll see a lot of times the rookie is they end up performing really, really well. We don't know what to expect from them. We don't have anything to tie back from besides their college football career. So it's hard to really speculate what's going to happen. I mean, look at a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. He was sneaking up in the first and second round. If you did that and you had great discipline and self-control and did not go for him, that worked out in your favor. By nominating Marvin Harrison Jr., people flocked and believed in the name, and they were burned by it. Now, had they done that with Neighbors, it would have worked out for them. But there's a value, I believe, in nominating these type of players early. So if you got a guy like Ashton Jeanty who's at 48, you've got Bijan Robinson at 56, Barkley at 55, Gibbs at 54, McCaffrey at 53. Look, I've seen it time and time again. Depending on where you nominate these players, I could see Jeanty being the guy who gets the most money, depending on where things are at. Well, let's say that Bijan and Barkley and Gibbs are all around that same area, and then you're at the bottom of a tier, and Jeanty ends up going even higher. If you want this guy, you better nominate him right away, and that's going to help you, I think, because when it's the last person in a tier, it's like if I don't get him, then I'm toast. So I got to keep up one, up one, up one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the scarcity is real, and if you're and we would highly suggest and recommend doing tier-based draft cheat sheet that you're using during your drafts, because you do want to kind of try to, if you really want a guy, try to nominate them early when they're at the top of a tier, because once that scarcity happens, that you can get in a bidding more, because somebody's just like, oh man, I missed out on the tier 1 guys. I can't miss out on these tier 2 players. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're way overspending for them, but feel like you have to have them because you missed out on those other superstars. So, honestly, I mean, the common theme is what these players we've been talking about is just guys that they have some question marks to them. They're not their clear certainty. And with some of the, uneasiness or people being unsure about them, that's where you can kind of spark these values.
Yeah, I honestly, like, you get one shot at your draft, so you got to make the most of it. But I honestly, and I truly don't think I've ever done this, although I've always wanted to. It's so hard to kind of fight the resistance on that. But it's just like, I think it's almost better to have a value for any player, and based on where it goes, draft guys that are based in that value, and go based off of that. Like, because people are going to overspend. So if you just go purely based on value and you think these players are going to be good, I think you're going to have a good team. But it's just tough because in your mind you have these players that you really, really like who think are going to do really, really well. It's hard to not just go after those players.
Yeah, it really is. And then it's, the other part of it is too, fantasy's fun, and you got to have, I feel you got to have some of a mix. And you got to get some guys that you think are going to be good, and you like, because it's got to be fun, but just got to be able to realize that you're not going to be 100% right on all these players either. All right, so our next player is going to be tight end George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. And he's a guy, if you do want to get George Kittle, you're going to want to nominate him early, get him out there before, Brock Bowers and a guy like Trey McBride as well gets nominated. You want those guys to still be on the board in order to have a chance of getting him a value. Kittle's coming off of one of his best performances, finishing as the tight end 3 last year. And, all the buzz, despite his great finish, all the buzz is still around, the new hotness in Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. But reality is, like, Kittle, I think, has got a chance to finish, still in the top 3, maybe even improve on it with this San Francisco team, because no more Deebo Samuel. These wide receiver options are injured at the moment. I know Christian McCaffrey is going to be back, but honestly, Brock Purdy is just going to, I feel like, go to old reliable and pepper George Kittle with targets once again. Now,
for those who are tuning in here, let's just put like a little disclaimer that Joe is a huge George Kittle guy and has drafted Kittle multiple times and loves him as a player. So let's that's a disclaimer that we want to put down there just to say that this is what you're hearing this from. But in all sincerity, I agree with you. I think that Brock Bowers is going to have some panic moments in this upcoming season. I think he's going to be, dumping it down to Kittle quite a bit. I think Kittle is going to be the number one option in this offense. I think that, in my opinion, you would be better off in nominating Kittle early, because if you wait, then you're kind of in trouble. But if you nominate him right away, and McBride and Bowers are still on the board, then people are like, I'm not going to pay that much for Kittle because I really would want to go for Bowers or McBride. But if you wait until that's after the fact, you're going to pay way more, I bet you, for Kittle. So he should be one of the guys you should be nominating quick.
Yeah, because, that's the thing. You wait for McBride and Bowers off the board, suddenly Kittle is no question the best tight end available. And if people want a difference maker at tight end, he's going to be the last guy there. Because people are kind of, mixed feelings on Sam Laporta and TJ Hawkinson, who are next in line at 4 and 5 there. So, Kittle, people will really be high on, and you're going to end up paying a lot more for him at that point.
It would not shock me if Kittle in your draft ends up being the most expensive tight end.
Yeah. Not if you nominate him early, but yeah.
Not if you nominate early, but if you wait, I would not be surprised.
See that.
So the last guy we're going to be talking about here is wide receiver Jaxon Smith-Njigba of the Seattle Seahawks, a guy who broke out, Joe. There was kind of questions as to whether he would or not, but nevertheless, he did. Ended up finishing as a wide receiver 9 in PPR leagues, over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. But now he has a new quarterback in town with Sam Darnold. And, depending on who you listen to as far as X goes, there's some who are thinking JSN to the moon. There are others who are pretty concerned about JSN, with Darnold at quarterback. I'm in the middle. I think I probably lean more towards the concern side than I do to the moon side. But at the end of the day, he's $23. I think it's a great price check. I think he's one of those players that there are a lot of people who are heavily opinionated about him, whether he's going to succeed or fail. And so he's a guy that's a good price check, because if you're willing to take the gamble, if you think that there's a lot of payoff there, then I'd go for it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And plus just kind of where he is in the middle of the drafts too. Like, he's after guys like Ladd McConkey, Devontae Adams, ahead of guys like Terry McLaurin, Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans. Once you get down to those type of tiers and people want a solid wide receiver too, you're going to end up having to pay more for JSN once it gets to that point. So if you truly believe in JSN and believe in the Sam Darnold situation as the quarterback and think he can, return to similar stat numbers that he had last year and keep going with the breakout year of last year, then go ahead and nominate this guy early when you might be able to get a discount with a bunch of other wide receivers still on the board.
So that does it for this episode. We went through 6 players that we would recommend that you nominate early in your drafts. Like we talked about at the beginning of the episode, nominations are really the only thing you control. And so don't wait. Nominate these guys early. This will help. If you think about it this way, it's kind of crazy if you think about it. Whoever is nominated early shapes your draft. It really does. Depending on who you nominate, the course of your draft is going to be different. So, you have, that ability with that one nomination to do your best to try to shift whatever the course of the draft. So keep that in mind. If you haven't done so already, check out our most recent episode. We talked about some players that you do not pay these prices in your auction draft. They are fool's gold. You're going to want to check that out. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.